the rain this morning. I woke up and I had no idea that it was raining because I went to sleep last night at like 7 with being sick. And I woke up this morning and expecting it to be sunshine. I opened the door and I just about turned around and went back in.
It's so hard, like on like rainy mornings, like when you can hear it hit the roof.
Exactly.
It's so hard to get out of bed because like it's the perfect day just to be like just snuggled up, just chill in the covers
with a book.
With a book, well,
yeah,
cheeseburger.
Yeah, just anything.
To each their own. On
that. Whatever you want. Well, welcome to another episode of Yoders Talk. I am your host, Corey McClendon. Of course, I always join with the co-host, Clinton Yoder. Today is a very special episode. We have a very special guest, Micah Camper on. He is with Tribe and Tongue, one of the missionaries that our organization supports. And then we also have Gerald Yoder, one of the salesmen down at Yoder Metal. And so we're really excited about this conversation today and ready to kick it off. Clinton, you got anything to say?
Well, I want to first welcome Micah, Gerald. Really appreciate y'all spending some time with us here. It's always exciting to hear the work that God is in right now, and it's just I'm excited to hear your conversation about what you got going on and the plans and things that are coming up, and just super excited to have somebody on like this, and we can dive into what God is doing in your life and the plans that He has for y'all. So, and Gerald, welcome. Appreciate you spending some time with us here. It's always good to have people from the team on and just get their insight. So, welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. And it's kind of special. You're our first guest from outside the organization.
Yeah.
So feel special. But me and you've known each other for a while.
Yeah.
We kind of grew up in ministry together and become really good friends. And I'm always thankful for your friendship. But you're about to embark on a journey. So if you kind of want to tell us kind of what's going on and what kind of introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for partnering with us and being there for us. Huge blessing. But we are so excited about moving to Uganda. Now, when I first met my wife, you knew us when we were dating.
Yeah.
And so first date with Lindsay, she told me, she said, one day I want to move to Africa. We're sitting there in Starbucks, and I was like, it's about to be our last date. About to be it. And it was just funny because for whatever reason, I continued with because at that point in time, you understand, like me and Corey grew up in the same kind of thing in ministry of like, if you're like 20 years old and you're in ministry, you're going to ministry. This was the map. Ministry school. You became a youth pastor. You became a pastor. Then one day you planted a church, and a big church. And it was like that was the dream, And so I was like, I wanted to do the church deal, and I had never been on a mission trip though. I was like 21, 22, something like that. And later on, we ended up going on a mission trip. The local church that we worked for at the time paid my way to go to Rwanda, and went to Rwanda, and man, it was kind of like one of those things where it's like, man, this is cool, this is neat, I ain't doing this the rest of my life, but this is pretty awesome. Came back, went on a second trip. I was like, I could see how somebody'd live here, like I could see it, because in my mind I had like, okay, I'm gonna be like eating bugs and like living in a hut, on a dirt floor.
That's what it's kind of portrayed to us. Yeah.
And so I had the whole picture in my mind, but after I saw it, I was like, okay, I could see how somebody do that. I'm still not gonna do it. I was just running from it. I was just like, I can't. And so the third trip, I went with Lindsay. By this point, we're married. And Lindsay, her and I got to spend some time together on the mission field.
Mm-hmm.
I got to see what that is like, you know. And man, God just over those 3 trips, God just did a work in my heart. And I realized like that is where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
That's where God put us together, you know, for a reason. And a couple years after that, we knew the Lord was moving us somewhere else, and we knew long term Africa was the place. We had a few other places on our heart too, but Africa was it. But the only door that was open at the time, there was a organization that we had supported down in Guatemala, and we had gone down there on a short trip. The leader of that organization had gotten COVID in 2020, and he ended up with long haulers, what you call long haulers. I don't know if y'all know ever heard of that.
I haven't, no.
Basically, you get COVID and it really jacks you up. Like that's for a long extended period of time. And so he ended up pretty much bedridden. He couldn't do anything. And so his wife and his son and his kids were kind of just running the ministry. And we went down there to give him a oxygen tank that he could actually wear.
Mm-hmm.
Because before he was like plugged up to this big giant tank that was in the wall. He couldn't be off of it for more than an hour. He couldn't breathe. So we took that down there to him. It was like 3-4 day trip. And his wife, you know, took us to a restaurant, just kind of told us like, hey, look, we really need some help. And we know y'all are called to missions. Would y'all consider coming down here? And we said, you know what, this would be a great way for us to kind of learn, number one,
absolutely.
Learn the ropes of a third world country under somebody who's been there for 10 years.
Right.
And kind of get our feet wet. And if the Lord calls us to Guatemala, we'll stay longer.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, okay, we're gonna spend 8 months, and we're gonna go. And man, we made that decision in January. We were on the field in March. Nice. So like literally 3 months.
Just quick
turnaround. Yeah, and we were raising money like crazy. We were trying to get the whole monthly support thing. We'd never done it before.
Right.
God just did it. Mm-hmm. He just did it. And so we found out real quickly that when it comes to missions, I feel like that there is I had somebody tell me this, and it's so true. Actually, the president of the organization we're going to told me this. Anyway, he said there's a special favor when it comes to missions.
Agreed.
When it comes to financial, all that. When you talk about like going on the mission field, I think God knows the need and He just meets it
every time.
Every time.
I've seen over and over in my life, just anytime that there's a need like that and we surrender it. That's the key, is surrender it to God. Half the time we try to do it ourselves and it doesn't work out. But when we surrender it to God, you know, and we're shocked half the time when He comes through, but He always does. Yeah. So why are we shocked so much? But it seems like every time He just comes through, He just does.
Mm-hmm.
That's the God we serve. So
absolutely.
And I remember that period of time, like when y'all were getting ready to move, it was almost like it was, hey, we're going, and then like y'all were there, and like I know there was like talking to some of our mutual friends and stuff. They're like, hey, like Micah's leaving the country. Like, have you heard anything about that? And I'm like, yeah, he's going to the missions field. And they're like, that's crazy. And I'm like, well, do you know Micah and Lindsay very well? Like, I'm like, I could totally see that.
Yeah.
And so I've always been a huge, like I've always loved you guys, and seeing you walk out in your calling, dude, it just, it builds faith in me. And so I'm always very appreciative to see that. But so after you spent 8 months in Guatemala, and then y'all transitioned back, coming back up here and started working at Temple Baptist as their missions pastor, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how was that experience?
So we were there. The crazy thing is, while we were there, literally month 8, his name's Danny Lopez. He's the leader of the organization. The organization was Ministerios Buena Vista, Danny and Kim Lopez. Danny started feeling great. Month 8. I mean, and he went from like couldn't get out of bed to now he's walking around. Now he's going to visit people.
Beautiful.
Now he's actually, and we just felt that release.
Yes.
You know, that it's time to go. We really prayed like, God, if this is where you want us long term, we'll stay. But if it's time to go, it's time to go. And we felt like it was. And so we had our sights set on another organization. They wanted us to be homebound for a couple of months, and they were going to send us to a training. And we had made that decision, and we came back. Those doors just kind of shut. Just out of nowhere, like, God, what are you doing? You know? We're sitting here on monthly support, basically homeless, have no place to live, living with my parents, and you know, you're just like, God, you're gonna have to do something. And so we just made a decision. Okay, let's just start over. Let's go to our supporters and just let them know what we're doing. I'll put my resume together, go try to find a job. One of our supporters was Temple Baptist while we were in Guatemala.
Okay.
So we sat down with Pastor Malcolm and just said, hey, look, this is what we're thinking of doing. We're just going to have to start over. And he said, where are you going to work? I was like, well, I don't know yet. Just so happens they were hiring a missions pastor at the time. So, and they needed, and I'm a videographer, and that whole world, like all this right here is just, I like this stuff. Yeah. And they needed a little bit of help with that as well. And so they hired me, and I've been on staff there for 2 years now. And he told me, he said, if God calls you to the mission field, I don't care if it's in 2 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, a year. He said, if God calls you, go. We want to release you. And I was like, this sounds like God's kind of opening up that door. So we took that job, and man, Temple Baptist, I've said it plenty of times, and this is probably just me as the missions pastor on staff at that church, but you'll not find another church more missions minded than Temple Baptist. I mean, it's just everything we do is missions. Everything, whether it's local, foreign, it's all missions. And Pastor Malcolm's heart for missions is absolutely, it's unmatched. And they've been a great church for us, just learning, and huge heart for discipleship. So, and kind of getting into why we call ourselves Tribe and Tongue, man, that is the vision for our family. Okay. So whether we are on the mission field, whether we're back home, we're Tribe and Tongue. And basically that whole thing is that, you know, we want to see every nation, tribe, and tongue come to know the hope that is in Christ. We want to see people. We want to see people come to know the Lord, and that comes from Revelation 7:9. And in that verse, there's just this beautiful picture of everyone standing before the Lamb. You know, the Lamb of God holding palm branches in their hands, and we see this, and there's this picture painted in our minds of what that is. But one day we'll see it. And our hearts is to take as many people there as possible with us, you know, and that's the vision for our family. And so I feel like every family should have a missional vision, a reason that you exist,
purpose,
and a purpose. And so that's ours. And when we find a church, when we are looking for a church, when we're looking for where we're going, everything's filtered through that. And Temple was just that. Yeah. We knew if we came back and I got a job somewhere else, I'd be going to Temple. Yeah. Like that was just, that was because discipleship is a big deal. Missions is a big deal. They preach the word. So anyway, there's a lot of great churches in Coleman. Right. You know, lots of great churches in Coleman. Great decisions. I mean, you can't go wrong with pretty much any of them. But Temple was just it for us. But and eventually, you know, as time goes on, well, I don't want to keep talking. You guys ask questions.
We're loving it. I'm enjoying it. Like that's the thing. You keep rolling. You keep rolling. We'll throw in some questions here shortly.
All right.
Just keep rolling.
Deal. Well, anyway, so with that, as time went on at Temple, my wife got pregnant with our third. His name is Lennon. So we got 3 kids: Eden, Highland, and Lennon. Okay. Lennon's 6 months old, Highland's 3, and Eden just turned 6. Maybe Highland's 4. I'm on the spot now. Like, can we cut this out? No. Anyway, so that we've got 3 kids, and while Lindsay was pregnant with Lennon, she wanted to have a home birth, so we took this class for a home birth thing. It ended up not working out. We ended up having a hospital birth because she had some complications and stuff. But when we were in this class, with this other girl, and her mom was there. And she said, hey, our church, we started talking about missions and stuff. Our church is actually looking for someone to come to Uganda through an organization of our church called 130. And so we started talking about that. I was like, really? And so she said, yeah. And turns out I know the missions pastor. His name's Kip Potter.
Okay.
Out of Daystar. And I go and talk to Kip, and I said, hey, what are you guys looking for? Because I've known Kip for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that he mentioned was everything that lines up with us. It's filtered through that tribe and tongue, like everything lined up exactly the way we wanted. And so Lindsay has a huge heart for the kids. I love the kids too, but my side's more on the discipleship and faith sharing. Faith sharing is a big deal for our family. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be just like Christians that go to church,
right?
But we want to actually be sharing our faith, outside of,
absolutely.
If we go to a restaurant or we go to Walmart or
living
wherever,
it out every day, every moment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, speaking it when it's on your heart to speak it. Absolutely. I love it.
And so that's always really kind of been, I don't want to say always, but over the last 3 to 4 years, that's been like, this is a big deal. We need to do this. So, and through Temple, they have a ministry called DMD, Disciples Making Disciples. And that's the whole thing is like, if you're making a disciple, you need to make a disciple who makes a disciple. Not just like you're meeting one-on-one on a Bible study and they don't do anything. Right. They just come to a Bible study every week. But you're showing them how to do this thing that you're doing and make sure that multiplies. But anyway, faith sharing is a big deal for us. And I'm not quite sure where I was going with that.
Oh, that's all good. I just have a question for you on this. How long did it ever seem from the time you got back till this came, did it ever seem that, I don't want to say, God, where are you? But that is in my life, there's times where it seems like, I don't want to say God goes silent, but I've learned that them are the moments that he's testing me the most. Just talk on that a little bit. If was that true for y'all?
Oh man. Yeah. Cause like the second we come back and then it just, some things happened, didn't work out. And now we're just here. Mm-hmm. And what do we do? Mm-hmm. 100%. We were both kind of like, God, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. We're in a limbo here. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to do something, and so we just prayed. Mm-hmm. We just prayed and we tried to trust God as best we could, and God worked it out. God just worked it out, and he always has, man. What's funny is when you have these faith-building moments where God comes through. Mm-hmm. He'll do it. He'll do it again. But when you need him to come through again, you're still, like, your faith is still just like as low as as it can possibly ever be.
And when he does, it about takes you back again. You're like, wow, look what he done. But he's been faithful since the beginning.
Every time.
Well, we had a conversation a couple weeks ago when we were talking about a problem and stuff, and like this is just something that's been in my head, and like me and my wife are having these conversations when she hits challenges and stuff, or like I've just come to this, and I guess it's just age, like it's so good to, when you come to those moments, to be able to look back and be like, God, you've been so faithful to me. There's a song that I listen to, a worship song, that it says, all my life you've been faithful. All my life you've been so good to me. And so, when I do get challenged in my mind, I kind of have this thing I'm doing is like, God, you've always been faithful to me. Like, you're not going to take a day off today.
Right.
You know, you're not going to stop so tomorrow. You know, and but it's really awesome to hear all that God is doing. But I want you to kind of transition and let's talk about next year, what's going to happen and what that looks like.
Yeah. Just to go back to that, because I do want to say something about that. You know, I feel like sometimes that the enemy will remind you, what if he doesn't? Like, he might not. He doesn't have to, you know, and he doesn't, and that's true, you know. And so that's been us right now, even with raising money. You know, we had a very short time to raise money, just like when we went to Guatemala. We had a very short time to raise money, and it's been mind-blowing. I've seen missionaries raise money over the course of 2 years and still be barely there. And we have had, I think we made the decision in June, I believe. And then we ended up starting the fundraising process little by little, maybe August, September, something like that. But it wasn't open to our church until like way later. So we had to be almost kind of like hush hush, like, you know what I mean? Like we were raising money through individuals. You know, we had supporters that were supporting us in Guatemala. We were trying to get them to, but there's like, we had to be careful what we posted on Facebook because our church didn't know yet. You know what I mean? So it was like we were having to be a little slower about it. And then finally our church opened and it was just floodgates. Okay, we're talking to people, you know, and stuff. And so people outside of Temple and trying to raise money, but God just has come through.
Yeah.
You know, he just has come through. And even with
that, and I want to,
we can jump into the other thing.
I want to throw this out, talking a little bit about your family, or, you know, that is around you through this process. You know, and I don't know you as far as your family, your background and all this, but has it been for them, has it been a struggle just with the uncertainty of you being gone? I know that a lot of family, and Gerald, you have a lot of family that's been on the mission field, is on the mission field. Talk on that just a little bit, because I know that they deal with things as well. You know, just leading up to y'all leaving, you know, I mean, you're going to be missed. You're going to be in a place that's foreign to them.
Right. Yeah. So with my mom and dad, they took the news okay. It's not that they're not excited, because they are.
Right, absolutely.
They know that this is what God's called us to do, but that doesn't make it easy. You know, even with our son Lennon, who's now 6 months old, all our kids love Gigi and Pawpaw. They love their grandparents. Lennon, you know, it'll be 2 years before we come back for Christmas. And by the time he's 2, that'll be the first time he's really meeting my grandparents or their grandparents, like in person, you know. And so that part, that sets in on me. It's sad for me and sad for them. And you know, but through technology, man, praise God for FaceTime. You know, like we can talk and those things. And I hope that they get to come on a trip. It was one thing in Guatemala, like my parents came for the weekend. It's a 6-hour flight. Yeah. It's not that big of a deal. Guatemala, it's like the same time zone too as Alabama. So it's not, you're not like the 7-hour difference where, you know, it's dark here, it's day there. And but Uganda's a different animal. And so that's kind of, that is sad. It sets in. It's like, man, you know, they won't get to experience quite everything that my other kids got to experience. Yes, Lennon won't. Yes. But with Uganda, and I'll kind of jump into what you were talking about this next 2 years. Next year, so we leave in January 15th. On January 15th, that's kind of where our flights are booked, and we are basically this is my goal. First thing, like right when we get to the field, we'll be able to start putting freshwater reservoirs at every orphanage. So 130 has 5 orphanages in Uganda, and oh, I gotta get the mic here. There we go. 130 has 5 orphanages in Uganda, and our job is to provide oversight to those orphanages, make sure they have what they need. We're kind of the liaison between 130 in Uganda, 130 back home. We'll be having weekly meetings with pastors there, and making sure that they have what they need, because a lot of these churches feed into the orphanages. They help, they provide, and so we're going to be doing a lot of organizational stuff, but then also during the summer, leading summer mission trips. Just a few months ago, we had a little girl at one of our orphanages. She had drank the water. She got sick, ended up with typhoid. Typhoid is pretty common there, but because it's so common, it's easy to treat. But she ended up, she was given the wrong medication, and shut her organs down. She died. All because she drank the wrong cup of water, And so we did a fundraiser. 130 did a fundraiser and got all of those water reservoirs paid for. So one of the first things we'll get to do is put water reservoirs at every orphanage in honor of that little girl.
That's
have her name on it and everything. And so it's really, really cool to see what God's doing there. And, all of this stuff that we do humanitarian wise opens a door for the gospel.
Absolutely.
We're not just a humanitarian organization. We're not just just a faith-based humanitarian thing. We are sharing our faith. And we're sharing the gospel, and we want to see people come to Christ. And that's really cool. We're building an orphanage on the, I guess it would be Midwestern side of Uganda, kind of bordering Congo. And we'll get to kind of break ground on that. We've raised tons of money for that as well. And we've been able to kind of get that going. So that we'll break ground on that as soon as we get there, and that'll be a lot of traveling back and forth to that area. It's called Kenya Maseki. It's about a 4-hour drive from where we will be living, which is in Barara, which is actually South Uganda. The cool thing about this, my first mission trip was Rwanda. We're only like 150 kilometers from the Rwandan border.
Oh, cool.
So we've got friends over there, people we know, and be able to, but anyway, that's a side thing. We'll be providing oversight. This is long-term, our goal, what we would really want to see happen. One thing that I've noticed with raising money for Uganda is everybody's got an orphanage in Uganda.
Right.
Everybody has one. It's like, it's just that it's such an issue there that it's a need that needs to be met. So everyone goes there to do that. What I would like to see is I would like to take kids out of the orphanage and then place them with a local Ugandan family, and then fund that $30 a month. Because we can fund them $30 a month in an orphanage, which is great. But what happens after they leave?
Yeah.
They're raised by some house parents that, that they do a great job, but there's 300-400 kids in this one orphanage,
There's no way they don't have any close connection with.
Right.
Yeah.
So there still needs to be met there.
Yeah.
For sure. So there's 1,500 kids in total of all of our orphanages, about 1,500 kids. But there's like 4.5 million orphans in that country.
Wow.
But God's entrusted us with 1,500, and what I would like to see is taking a kid out of that orphanage, create like a foster care situation where we're able to fund a child in a local Ugandan family, raising them in their own culture, raising them in their own, however they raise kids,
Right.
But we believe what the word says: you raise up a child in the way it should go, when it's old, it won't depart from it. And if we can create a very rigorous system, not everybody can be a foster parent,
Right.
and that can get. I want to be careful how I say this. It can get corrupt really quick, because they all love kids in Uganda. So if they get catch wind. Oh, $30 a month for a kid? Give me like 10 of them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And you just created another issue in itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want to make it very hard to do it. We want to make sure that if they're doing it, they love kids for the right reasons.
Right.
And we want to do checkups and things like that, making sure that, hey, okay, we gave you $30 last month to get this, and this. Did they get that? So that'll be a part of it too. But I believe that giving them that situation, they have a mother and a father that can raise them, show them the ways of life, mentor them, and really be a spiritual mom and dad to these kids, whereas they really don't have that now. Now, does that mean we're shutting our orphanages down? No. Those are going to continue to go. So that's one phase. Another phase is, as these kids come age out of the orphanage, we want to make sure that they have some sort of way that they can make money. So one of our orphanages does a really good job teaching them. They have a trade school where they're learning to make clothing, sew, and all those types of things. And they're being discipled in that as well. But the cool thing is that it's not just like t-shirts, like it's really good stuff. Like they made me a suit jacket.
Oh, cool.
And they measured me. I went in the beginning of October, just kind of find a house and everything. And they measured me out, and I was like, it's probably gonna be too big or it's gonna be too small. I was like, I'll take it to the foundry or something, and somebody will wear it, but man, it fit.
Nice.
And it looked good. I was like, man, I'm not a suit guy either, so it worked out really good. So and whenever I go and I present at churches and stuff, I'll wear that suit jacket and just let them know, hey, look, they're doing a good job.
Yes, yeah.
So one of the phases we want to, not all of our orphanages have that right now. So we want to make sure that they are receiving some sort of trade. The new orphanage in Kinyamaseki is being built right in the middle of a cornfield. So already we have agriculture.
Cool.
And there's a family that was farming that field. And when we told them, hey, we just bought the land, you guys can stay, but can you help us, teach these kids how to farm? They're like all excited about it. Yes, absolutely. Cool.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really cool to see that already taking place. There's still, 3 more orphanages we need to, figure some things out with. And so we're going to be adding some trade opportunities there. And so, because what happens is they get out of the orphanage, they go, they try to do the best that they can. They end up on the streets. They end up in a relationship they shouldn't be in. She gets pregnant. They can't take care of that kid. They don't have jobs. Kid ends up in an orphanage. So it's this vicious cycle. It just keeps going. Yeah. And so we want to make sure that as they come out of the orphanage, because you can't stay there forever,
right, that
they are becoming self-sustaining in some kind of way. Yes. And so that's some of our goals there.
How is, and I know that us in America, we're going to always think of things like this because we're most people don't know how it is in other countries as far as safety wise and things like that. You hear things of Uganda, this, and you hear that. Is it a I mean, I know God will protect. That's who he is, but is it a safe area, safe country per se, or
is it unsafe to be a Christian? No. There are lots of Christians there. But is it unsafe in general? A little bit. When it comes to Uganda's in a weird place because it's just south of Sudan. It borders Sudan and Congo. Both of those areas are wild cards. Right. And sometimes they come in and they cause havoc. There was an orphanage this past summer. Some guys from the Congo, not our orphanage, it was a different orphanage. Some guys of the Congo, found out that there was a supply drop, and they came in and wreaked some havoc, took the supplies. So that stuff happens. There was a safari vehicle lit on fire a couple of weeks ago, really in that Kinyamaseki area, because it's right there in Congo, bordering Congo, and a lot of them are like Muslim rebel groups.
I got you.
They'll come over and then they'll indoctrinate the Ugandan people, and it just causes issues. That's pretty common, just all across Africa.
Right.
That kind of stuff happens. So as far as that goes, yes, there's danger. On the other end too, like medical care is not awesome.
Right.
They have decent medical care. Like it's not like our kids are gonna. We can get good medical care. Locals can't so easily. And so with that, there are dangers, there are risks, there are just like Guatemala. Guatemala is like, everywhere you went, you had to worry about the cartel. So and there's lots of corruption. There's lots of people take advantage of you really quickly. That kind of stuff happens, where people take advantage of you and they think because you're American,
right,
you can do this. We can upcharge. We can charge you a little more. With the house that we are renting in Uganda right now, they gave us one price. When we told them we wanted to rent it, we went and looked at it. And then when they found out we were American, they gave us another price. So that happens. It happens. And so it just
kind of part of it.
Yeah.
Part of the adventure.
Yeah.
And I know, getting back to a little earlier, I know your parents. I know Melinda's probably a little sad about not seeing her grandbabiys and stuff, and that's probably
she doesn't watch this
podcast. Probably presents a little challenge. And so Gerald, I know you have family that's been in the mission field. I kind of, one of the things I wanted to hear from you before we kind of get back into what's going on with you. What's it like having family in the mission field? Only seeing that family member for a week every 2 years, or
week out of the year. Yeah, so like I have a brother down in Belize, and he is right in the middle of Belize City. He's in a really gang infested area, and so he has to watch some of the stuff like what he does. He can't get to like whatever with some of the guys and stuff, but like his mission is more reaching younger people, like the involved people is what they call it. So yeah, it's rough. Not only seeing them like once a year. You talk over the phone. I don't talk with them that much because I'm not an over the phone guy. I'm more of an in-person guy. But they usually come home. They get a furlough, like a 3-week furlough every year. I think the first 2 years they were down there, they didn't get a furlough, but they could come home after those 2 years were up. And so they've had 2 children while they were down there.
Mm-hmm. Ooh. Yeah.
And so I know it's not as hard for me because like I like kids and stuff, but like it really tugs at mom.
You'd rather once they get a little older is
correct
where Uncle Gerald comes in.
That's where Uncle Gerald comes in when they're a little bit older, when they can hold.
They can go home.
Like they're like my one niece. Like I had this thing like. I almost dropped my sister's baby one time.
Oh, boy.
And this thing was like a week old, and it was her first one.
Oh, boy.
And so I was like, yeah, after that one, I don't know if I want to hold another baby.
Yeah, I'm gonna
and so, like, most times I wait until they're about a year old before I start holding them. I'll play with them and whatnot, but I just don't like holding a baby that's like, they almost feel like glass to me.
Right.
And they're so like fragile and whatnot. So
they're pretty durable. They bounce off the ground pretty
yeah.
But no, like so like they just had one about 7 or 8 months ago. We met him when he was like 6 months old. Mm-hmm. They came back up. So it's like my sisters went down like over the time that he was born. 2 of them went down. So it's kind of like they still get the family interaction a little bit. Actually here next week, I think they're going down.
Okay.
2 police, Ernie and a couple of my sisters are going down. So they come up, we go down. I haven't been down yet.
Mhm.
I don't know if I will make it down yet because believe they're coming back in April.
Okay.
But so we had a sister too that I have a sister that went down to Mexico for a while too. She was down there for like 2.5 years. I went down there and actually visited her and like took one of my friends down. That was a very cool experience to see what they did in that community.
What was that? Was that orphanage more too?
It was
No?
not an orphanage.
No, it wasn't.
It was a bakery.
Okay.
So they ran a bakery and it was their way of reaching people and stuff.
It's probably it probably, especially with children being born down there, it probably is tougher on the grandparents and
It is.
the
Yeah.
the aunts, and them. So
I know if my mother-in-law, if I told her that, she might take the kids for with her. She'd be like, y'all can go in the mission field, but my babies are staying with me, you know. But
no, that's one thing though that Mama always did. If we went, like some of us went on the mission field, she always said, "I don't want y'all to go, but if that's where God has called you to be,
yes,
that's where I want you to go."
yeah.
And so, having a mom support like that,
Yeah.
like even though she does not want you to go, she's still going to allow you to fulfill God's work
Yeah.
and His plan for
Yeah.
your life.
It's God's will is important. If
100%.
and I'm thankful for my parents. I understand that. Like it is worse for everyone else if you don't go.
Mm-hmm.
And so when God's will is God's will, and if you're outside of God's will, it's a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, exactly.
It is more dangerous than where you're going.
Yes,
Can
absolutely.
be.
Yes.
So,
yes. God's will, a lot of times, outside of just going on the mission field, our daily walk with God, we're okay a lot of times with when it's God's will, when it fits kind of to our agenda. But how much are we willing to, when God says, hold up, it's time to take a 360 or take a right turn, how much are we willing to actually step out in faith and go down that path?
Like
y'all stepping out and going to Uganda, that's big. That's a big move. There's not many people out there that would even probably consider it, which is not okay. We need to always be willing to do whatever God's will is in our life. But I encourage people to, call on God in their life. A lot of times people feel empty right now. Why is that? Because not many people are truly seeking His will. If you follow His will, you won't be empty.
Yeah.
I promise you that.
Yeah.
He's going to keep you busy.
Yeah.
And He's going to keep you engaged in His kingdom if you're willing. And that is the key, I think, is, the willingness to do so.
Like he said earlier, he said something about not wanting to go. Like, as far as that, it's I find it kind of crazy sometimes how the things that we don't want to do, that's where God exactly takes us to.
Most times.
Yeah.
Most times, those places, like, for me, I taught school for 3 years. I would have said growing up 15, 16, no, I'm never teaching school. Not teaching school. I ended up teaching for 3 years then.
Then you enjoyed it.
And I enjoyed it.
There you
I
go.
loved it. But
when God's in the forefront of what we're doing, it's game on.
Like and me and Micah have a very special relationship, because we served in ministry together, and there's some, it's kind of like and when you're in ministry at times, there's a lot of stress and a lot of like things that you see that you're like, gosh, I wish that, we could do that different. And it's the same way of like growing up as a kid being like, when I'm a parent, I won't do it this way. Like when you're growing up in ministry, it's like a youth pastor and an associate pastor. You're like, when I lead my own church, I won't do it that way either, And, the thing that I will say is like Lindsay's always had this, like as long as I've known Lindsay, She's always had this on her heart, and seeing you, like, your heart get opened up to it, it's pretty awesome to see as a friend, because I've always, as long as I've known you had a great call on your life, and seeing God move through you has been, something that I love to see. And I'm that way with all my friends. I think that's one of the highlights of my life, is getting to not only see what God does in my life, but what He does around in the people that He's placed me around.
Right.
And so, it was kind of funny. Me and you, we stopped serving together, and I moved away, and but we've always kind of stayed in touch. And so, I guess, what was it? Maybe a month ago or so,
something like that.
I was just happened to be up in Coleman, and like I just driving on the street, and I was like, "That's Micah."
We were having a yard sale.
Yeah, y'all were having a yard sale, getting ready. I was like I'm like driving with Lauren. I was like, "That's Micah," and I don't think she had met you at that point.
No.
And so she's like, "Who's Micah?" And I'm like Micah Camper is the best person in the world. And I was like, we have to like turn around and go see Micah.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm so excited for you, to get to see I am heartbroken a little bit, because, we're not going to get to see each other like this, for a couple years. But like you said, there is technology. I know I FaceTime with you one time when you were down in Guatemala. And so I totally intend on, when you get over there, get established, calling you. I want to see everything. Maybe if the Lord wants us to come over there and visit, whatever.
100%. You'll be there.
I've learned not to, in my 31 years, I've learned to stop telling God no.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what He's going to make you go do. I had a conversation. Somebody asked me if I would ever get back into pastoring, and I had to tell them, I was like, I'm not going to say no. I was like, I need like a Paul on the road to.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too with that. Like you said earlier, it's been cool to see how God's kind of molded you. It kind of opened you up to missions, and like, man, now I look back. I think about pastoring a church. No way. No way.
And it was what? How many years ago? That was kind of your focus.
Yeah. I mean, probably 5 years ago. Or that was 6 maybe. Yeah. Where that was like, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do when I get older.
Right.
Yeah. Heck no.
Right.
Yeah. No.
So how long will you be going over there for?
So our commitment is to 2 years. At first we said 5. And they're like, "Whoa, we'll pump the brakes." And so, 2-year commitment, and then we evaluate from there.
Okay.
But I know for a fact that missions is long term where we're gonna. The mission field's where we want to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether it's Uganda or somewhere else, I know for a fact that missions is it. Yeah. I don't ever see myself pastoring a church. And of course, like you said, the things we say no to, I could not, when I tell you I could not see myself pastoring a church ever, I could never see myself pastoring a church.
Takes a special person to do it.
It does.
It really does.
It ain't me. So,
you have to have an excellent prayer life.
Yeah, it's true.
Just throw this out. Is there a place that, people listening to this could support y'all, or
absolutely?
Yeah. Let's talk on that just a little bit.
Yeah. So we have a website. It's called tribeandtongue.org. Tribe A-N-D and tongue. Tribeandtongue.org. Okay. And we have a giving tab on there. If you go to give, there's 3 different options there. This is a really cool thing right here. I'm gonna explain. So one option is for our launch budget. It was $25,000. And then we had an $8,000 emergency return budget. So it's $32,000 total. And then we have our monthly support option on there. You click any of those links, they all take you to the same place, and you can just like set it up however you want, one time or monthly. This past Sunday at Temple, Temple took up a love offering for us. And our goal was 32. I think the last number I saw was like $47,000.
Wow.
So, I mean, this is one of those things, God just did it.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, like, when we went to Guatemala, we didn't really raise money for like a launch fund. Probably should have, but we just didn't.
Right.
And so, a lot of that, our church helped us with that, that type stuff. But we just raised our monthly support, and it wasn't much,
Right.
like at all. It was barely enough to live here,
Right.
And so going into this, I was like, we have just the same amount of time to raise money, maybe a little more, but not much. And we have twice the amount of money to raise. And I'm like, I don't know how God's going to do this. And God just did it. And so, man, that's one of those faith builder things. It's like,
yeah. And that's, it's like a confirmation.
Yeah.
I mean, on top of probably however many other confirmations you've had.
Yeah.
But it gives you probably a sense of just, wow, God, okay, we're for sure, we're doing it for sure. I mean, you're always committed, but I know for me, a lot of times when I'm on a journey like that, God's kind of trying to follow his will, you're committed, but yet there's still a feeling of, the what ifs. But when God comes through like that, the pressure probably just,
it's crazy, because the first thing that comes through my mind, there's a few emotions that I feel is like, I feel guilty, because I'm like, hey, why me? I'm going to get emotional. Cut this out. No tears. Why me? Why would you trust me? What have I done to, most people say this when bad stuff happens. I'm like, this is good stuff. I'm like, why me, God? But I'm just like, why did you choose me? Like, I'm not that good. I'm not that eloquent with my words. I'm not that, savvy with certain things. And so, like, man, but it also puts a heavy sense of humility and responsibility on my heart.
Yeah. To
go, God is trusting me with this, and I have to do a good job, Yeah. And so, it's just cool to see God move like that in your life, and it's a faith builder for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
what would you say, like, is your biggest need right now?
Right now, because the launch budget's taken care of, monthly support is we're at about 60% on monthly support.
Yeah.
And so and that's a projection of some pledges that have been made. That money's not actually coming through yet. So with all of that in is 60%.
Okay.
And so we're getting ready to. Right now, that's what we're focused on is monthly support.
Yeah.
Monthly support.
Well, y'all hear that, guys? That's if you want to be part of a God moving work. What was that website again?
Tribeandtongue.org. Yeah.
Tribeandtongue.org. Make sure you go there and let's support these guys. I mean, they're going to do some good work, and we are over here sitting here eating cheeseburgers and can run to town, and all our kids have places to live, and nice warm places to sleep. We got water to drink, good water to drink.
So I gotta give you typhoid.
Yeah. And so, man, yeah, if nothing else, give to someone that's going. I mean, if you can't go yourself, hey, I would encourage each and every one that's listening to, if God puts it on your heart, let's support them.
Yeah, it's a great commission,
Absolutely.
Go and share the gospel. Acts 1:8, says, go unto Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and all ends of the earth. And so, yeah, we have a commitment to not only, share the gospel here in your own community, but keep expanding that out. And if you can't go, I totally believe it's biblical that you should send someone or support
absolutely.
them.
Yes. And it's, people out there sometimes feel guilty. I've at times felt guilty in the sense of, man, I need to be doing something for God. I'm over here just, working, and it was about probably 2 months or 2 years ago, it hit me that and it's directly from God, I feel like, that, look, your work here is just as important, because there's people that need support that are on the mission field. If people are not here doing God's work here, there's nothing to support the ones going. So be the support. Mm-hmm. And so that's my encouragement to people that are not on the mission field. You have just as much of a calling on your life to support them missions as that person going.
Yeah. You can either go or you can send.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. Yes. And so that's kind of where my heart is with that.
Yeah, just pray about it. That's the key. Pray about what, and God's going to let you know, like, hey, whether it's supporting Micah, your brother, there's tons of missionaries out there. You know, we support a few different ones. You know, Chris Harrison. Pray about it. Whatever you're passionate about, I guarantee you can find somebody that has that same passion that's out in the field, and then support the heck out of them.
Yes.
You know, because those, I mean, it's a grind out there. And
I mean, the worst thing that for you, Micah, probably, if you were over there and didn't have any financial support, that's a big stress on you that can be lifted.
Yeah.
You know, when you're there, if you got to worry about that side of it yet, you're talking about a lot of extra pressure. So if you can have the support, then you can truly do what God has you there to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I'm going to say this, and this is, you know, me being over spiritual, but, you know, we need monthly support. We need the financial stuff. If you can't do that, commit to prayer.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah.
There has been times when we were in Guatemala that someone might message us on Facebook, send us an email, text message, whatever it may be. Just let us know, hey, I read your email, I read your newsletter, and we've been praying for those things we put in there. Us as a family has been praying. That means more to me than somebody saying, hey, I just want you to know we picked you up at $50 a month or whatever it may be. Because when you're doing missions and you're in a foreign country, no one speaks the same language as you, no one looks like you, no one acts like you, it's lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing that you've got friends and knowing you've got people that are with you in this, not just financially, but in prayer, it's important.
Yes.
It's important.
Just getting that message that, you know, Gary actually has talked to me, his brother, and I'm good friends with him, and he has talked to me about that. He said, honestly, getting that text message in the middle of the day or that WhatsApp message or whatever and saying, hey, thinking of you, praying for you right now, he said, probably, it does more for him than about anything, because, you know, you mentioned the loneliness of it.
Yeah.
It's real.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's real. I mean, you're leaving everything you've known to go somewhere.
And you're going into a culture that is totally different from yours. And it is like, it's such a culture shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it definitely has its challenges, and here's the deal. We probably talk all day about this, and I know me and you certainly could, but I'm thankful for what you're doing. I want you to know that for my family and here at Yoders Talk and all the Yoders organization, we believe in you guys.
Absolutely.
We're praying for you. We know that God has a great calling on your life, and we just kind of wanted you to come on here, talk about your story, talk about what God's doing. And so on January 15th, you're leaving, and just know we're behind you 110%.
Yeah.
And we'll be looking for those emails and text messages and calls and stuff, and we may have to do some updates from time to time to kind of tell how you're doing. So
let me tell you that those MailChimp emails, they're annoying. So when I send them out, read them.
Okay. I like it.
That's awesome.
I hate them. I hate making them. I hate doing them, but I know they have to be done. And it's like you do them, and it's like you go back and look at the analytics. Like 2 people clicked it.
Well,
how do I do this?
We're at least gonna make it 3.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Well, at least click it. Just click it. You don't have to read it. Just click open the email.
Yeah, just make him feel good.
Yeah.
Well, Well, I think today was such a great episode.
Yes.
Thank you, Micah, for being on the podcast. Thanks, Gerald, for being on the podcast. I know we're gonna have to bring Gerald back sometime, but of course, tell your family we love them.
Yeah.
And we're so excited, and thank you guys for watching. Of course, you guys have really supported this thing. We actually broke 1,000 subscribers on YouTube this week,
Yes, we
and
did.
so we're so honored that you would do that for us, and continue to share it, like it, and then of course pray about it. If you feel like you want to support Micah and his family, we'll link it in the description of the podcast, that so you can go on there and see their story and follow them. So yeah, thank you, Clinton, for being on here. I know
Absolutely.
you're a little under the weather today.
I'm doing better now, I feel like, since I've been sitting
Yeah.
here relaxing. So
Well, good.
So
But thank you again, and we will leave you with this thought: always lead with a purpose. And we can't wait to be back next week.
absolutely. Let's do it.
So thank you guys.
See y'all later.